I bought a 2004 Audi A4 premium package with a 6-speed with 209,000 miles. We're going to talk about the pros and cons, my overall impressions, and we're going to talk to Kevin. He is the previous owner and he's an Audi enthusiast. He also works for an Audi dealership. So he's going to tell us what to look out for in these cars. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Mike the Baldadonis and I buy and sell cars as a hobby, and I bring you guys along with me showing the pros and cons of each vehicle that I buy. Now back in January, I bought a total of 5 cars to start off the new year. And all the cars I've sold except for the Audi. I saved the best for last. All right, but I also want to have a moment of silence to my 2008 Lexus RX 350. The person that bought it a few weeks ago has totaled it. She had a rollover, she got into an accident, but she's fine. But that Lexus was a one-owner vehicle before me. Always garaged, always well taken care of, and you know when you sell a vehicle to somebody or give something to somebody that you know they can't take care of, I wish I never gave that car to these people. But with that said, unfortunately, I have to sell my cars so I can get a little bit of extra money so I can buy some more cars. But I do feel bad because that was a nice SUV. All right, so back to this Audi A4. When I saw the ad on Craigslist back in January, I was like, ooh, that's a nice looking Audi. I'm not an Audi guy myself. I'm more towards BMWs, but I do like every car. I love cars. I'm a car enthusiast. I just know Audis have a lot of problems with certain engines and transmissions and stuff like that from back in the day, and I just never gravitated to Audi. But I do like the looks of this one. I really do. And this is the second Audi I bought in the past 12 months. My other one was a 2009 A5 6-speed 3.2 liter with 190,000 miles. I really enjoyed that car. But when I got into this one, I liked it even more. So reading the ad, 209,000 miles, but right below it said motor replaced at 110,000 miles. Suspension, all brand new. New clutch, upgraded wheels, 18s up to the 19s. He did a few cosmetic things to the car, and we're going to talk to Kevin. He is a wonderful person. He's a car enthusiast, which I love. I love buying cars from car enthusiasts because they speak my language. They take care of their cars just like I do. So Kevin's going to talk a little bit about this car. It's a few minutes long, so go grab some snacks, okay? Huddle, hugs, whatever you want to do. Snuggle with a girlfriend, a boyfriend, your pet. You're going to enjoy this video. It's a little on the longer side, but that's because I do a full detail at the end. I do some driving around. There were some things that had to be done at the repair shop, but this is going to be a good video. So let's listen to Kevin.
Hey, my name's Kevin. I'm the gentleman that sold this Audi A4 to Mike, and I'm an Audi guy. I work at Audi in Stratham, and I've been driving Audis for a long time. My first Audi was a 1977 Audi Fox that I had in the mid-'80s, and that was basically a Jetta with Audi rings on the front. It didn't even have Quattro, it was front-wheel drive. And then in 1999, when my wife and I got married, we bought a A6 wagon, and that kind of got me hooked on Audis, as a driver's car. My first experience with Audis, that really got me excited about them as a performance car was a trip to Lime Rock Park in Connecticut. That's a road racing track. And I went to the 1989 IMSA race where I saw the turbo 5-cylinder Audis just dominate the field. It was an amazing experience, and I've been an Audi fan ever since. The A4 I picked up here at the dealership where I work. It was a trade-in with very high miles, so the dealership wasn't interested in it. They didn't want to resell it. But I saw the potential there because it was a clean car. It was a one-owner. The guy had ordered it from us new, and did every single service at our dealership. Every major maintenance, every oil change, every tire change, every brake job, anything the car needed, he did there. So I knew the history of the car, and I knew it was a good one to get. And despite the high mileage, I knew it was a good purchase because the motor was replaced at about 111,000 miles, I think it was. It had a fuel injector recall, and one of the injectors went bad, and that ended up scoring one of the cylinder walls. And so Audi stepped up, and as part of consequential damage, put a new engine in the car. So even though the odometer, says 207, 208, whatever it is now, the motor was completely replaced at 111. So I got the car, and like I do to most of my cars, I kind of went through it, cleaned it up, made sure it was 100%. I had no intention of selling this car, I did complete suspension. I put H&R springs in it. I did Coney struts all around. I put a ECS not a downpipe, a high flow cat. I put a K&N cold air intake on it. I did a Unitronic Stage 2 tune. Believe it or not, the clutch in this car was still original at 205,000 miles. And the pedal was a little high, but it held the tune. You could still go through the gears with the tune, but I figured since it had the more horsepower, I might as well do a clutch. So I did the clutch as well. And then I usually go through and just clean them up real good. I take apart the calipers and rebuild them, paint the backing plates, just make sure everything's clean, so that it looks nice. The wheels and tires came off of an S4. I think they look better than the factory tires that were on there. Even this little lip spoiler, this little black spoiler, believe it or not, that was like a $60 rubber spoiler that came in an 8.5 by 11 envelope. I don't know if it came from China or Lithuania or where, but it just adds something to the car, makes it look nice, So for me, I like all those little touches. On the inside, this particular car had wood trim, on the doors and down by the shifter, and I'm not a wood trim guy, so I vinyl wrapped everything that was wood in kind of a matte carbon look. I just think it makes the car look sportier, more masculine, as opposed to the swirly wood. I'm not a swirly wood guy. That's about it for what I did to the car, and I got to tell you, I would not have sold this car, I built it because I enjoyed driving it. It's a stick. It's rare to find a manual transmission A4, a B85 anyways, that isn't a base model. Most of them don't have the upgraded MMI. They don't have Bang & Olufsen sound. They're usually the manuals are strippies. But this one was a nicely optioned car that just came with a manual transmission, so I jumped all over it. And I had plans on keeping it for a while, But then this came along. That convertible came into my shop. And that was also a one-owner, special ordered from us. It's a Prestige, pretty much every option, dynamic ride control, lane assist. The car's loaded, and it had jump time. And I ended up buying that car from the owner. I thought it was a good time to get a convertible. We were coming up closer to, I knew springtime was coming, and I had an A5 coupe before that I really enjoyed. And so I thought, well, you know what? I think I'll put the A4 up for sale, and I'm going to do the same kind of things I did to the A4 to the A5. So I've kind of gone through that one too and done the same kind of cleanups, the same vinyl wrapping on the wood trim, changed the wheels and tires. I put some RS5 wheels on it, and I'm having a ball with it. I think it's a great car. So that's kind of the story of the A4, what I did to it, and really the only reason why I would sell it. I couldn't think of another reason why I would. So hopefully that helps. All right, so some of the things that you would want to look out for if you're buying a high mileage 2-liter Audi. Audi's been making the 2-liter for a long time, and in the B7 cars, 2006, 7, they had issues with a thing called the cam follower. There's a little thimble piece of metal that the high pressure fuel pump rod would ride on as the camshaft went around and around and around, and they would wear out to the point where the rod would poke through the thimble looking cam follower and ruin the camshaft. We saw a lot of bad engines because of that. So if you're buying an older 2-liter, you want to see maintenance for the cam follower being done. And if it's making any sort of a tat 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 noise under the valve cover towards the rear, towards the firewall, you want to be cautious of that. Then we went into these newer 2-liters, and really the big things that happen on these cars is thermostat assemblies. They're made out of a polymer. They're not a metal thermostat assembly, and they're attached to the side of the engine block up under the intake manifold, and over a long period of time, or due to oil leaks from the valve cover, the cam cover, they'll warp and they'll start seeping. So you get some overheating issues. If you check on one of these 2 liters and the coolant overflow tank is down below the minimum line and you've got a little bit of a smell, but everything looks fine, most likely the thermostat assembly is seeping. These cars also kind of have a bad reputation for burning oil. Mostly that was 2010, 2011, very early 2012. They had soft piston rings, and Audi stepped up. They extended the warranty on those cars to 8 years, 80,000 miles. And at our dealership, I'm not kidding, we did hundreds of rebuilds where we took the engines out of the car, rebuilt them with new piston rings, new pistons, new seals, the whole bit. In fact, my convertible had that done at about 102, 103,000. It got a complete piston job because of the high oil consumption. On Mike's car, that one had the fuel injector problem that caused the motor to be replaced. That one was not an oil burner. 2014 does not have that problem. So you really shouldn't shy away from, a 13, 14, 15 2-liter thinking that it has high oil consumption, because they just don't. The biggest problem with the newer 2 liters is the timing chain. Not so much the chain, but the tensioner. It's oil pressure driven, and a poorly maintained 2-liter, the tensioner can clog up with deposits and whatnot, and so that the oil pressure isn't there to hold the chain tight. It can also, just over time, due to wear, they have self-adjusting tensioners in them, so the tensioner will spring out more and more and more and hold that chain nice and tight. Well, once it reaches its maximum point, the guide rails continue to wear, the chain continues to wear, and eventually you'll get a check engine light, and it'll be for a timing correlation code, a correlation code. You'll have to redo that part. It can be a fuel pressure code, because if the timing is off on the exhaust cam, it'll trip a code for the fuel pressure being off at startup. The timing itself, if both camshafts are straight up and down, that'll be 0 degrees. Well, as the chain stretches and the timing chain reaches the end of its life, the exhaust cam will be 2, 3, 4 degrees off of the intake cam. Audi says 2 to 3 degrees is fine, no issues there. But once you get up to 5, 6, 7 degrees, you usually get a check engine light, and you really need to think about replacing the timing chain. So at the dealership, we can check to see the condition of the timing chain, and we do a laptop test where we plug into the ECU and we look at the cam correlation. We look at how many degrees off the exhaust cam is from the intake cam, and Audi allows up to 2 degrees is completely normal. A brand new chain is 1.6 or so once the timing chain job is done. So 2 to 3 degrees, really you're no danger at all of the timing jumping. But we've seen cars come in running rough, check engine light, and we check that correlation code or that reading, and we'll see 5, 6 degrees off, and we know that the chain is at the end of its life. It's fully stretched. The timing chain adjuster, is out all the way, and it's time to do the chain job at that point. Audis have an interference motor, so if the chain does jump, valves hit pistons, and now you're looking at a cylinder head, or at least a major cylinder head rebuild. It's not as easy as just doing a chain. So if you have one of these 2 liters, you bring it in for service, and they tell you, hey, you're going to need a chain either now or very soon, because that reading is up around 4.5, 5.5, 6 degrees. Don't take it lightly. It's serious. When the chain needs to be done, it needs to be done. They don't have a scheduled maintenance interval like the old timing belt motors. I've seen chains come in bad at 60,000 miles. I've seen other cars come in at 175,000 miles, and the chain needs to be done at that point. So it's really a matter of maintenance, using the proper oils for the car, using the proper oil filter for the car. A car that's been well maintained, even if it has high mileage, I never worry about high mileage cars. If I can look at the service history and see that it's got a really good track record and it's been well maintained, high mileage doesn't bother me. I mean, cars are just nuts and bolts. Parts are replaceable. I would rather drive one of these cars. My convertible's got 175 on it. Mike's A4's got 208 on it. I would rather drive one of those cars than a 60,000 mile car that hasn't been well maintained. So think about these things. When you're looking at an Audi, don't be put off, by the fact that something might have high miles on it. Do your research. If it's a high mileage car with a good service records, it's good to go.
So getting ready for this video, I text Kevin. I said, Kevin, when the last time you changed the oil? Should I change the oil? He said, yeah, you might as well change the oil. I'm like, all right, cool. So I went over to my friend's shop, Dave, at European Auto Solutions. We put the car up in the lift. I show you guys what the car looks like. We do the oil change. And it was Friday the 13th. And just one of those days, you know what I'm talking about? We changed the oil. And I look at Dave and I said, that oil filter looks a little bit smaller than the one that just came off it. It should be fine. Okay. Do the oil change. I go to the gym. And after that, the car had a hard time starting. It would, fumble, boom, 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 and it would start. And then it would check engine light, and then it would hesitate. It would run a little rough. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And then it would smooth out, run good. And then when I got back to my house, I restarted it, and it just kept, woo, woo, woo. I was like, what the hell's going on? So I messaged Kevin. It's like, Kevin, I just changed oil. Do you have any idea what's going on? He was like, oh, if you didn't use a OEM oil filter, you might have some problems. I'm like, oh, geez. So I called up my friend Dave. I said, Dave, something's going on with this car, man. So I bring it back. We changed the oil filter, but we were still having some problems. It was a Friday, like I said, Friday the 13th. It was around 5:30 going on 6. And Dave said, bring it back on Monday and we'll take a look at it. But in the meantime, Kevin was more worried about it than I was. Well, no, I was pretty worried. I was. So Kevin, being at the Audi dealership, said, come tomorrow morning and I'll take a look at it. So I did. I drove up to the dealership. Kevin took a look at it. He scanned everything. He thought maybe the timing had jumped for some reason. But everything came out fine except for the high pressure fuel pump. It just happened to be one of those things. It happens, and I had Dave replace the fuel pump. It cost me $500, but the car, I thought with this tune, the car ran pretty good, and I thought it was pretty quick, especially from a 2.0 with 220 horsepower stock up to 300 with all the add-ons. But when I changed that fuel pump, the car started right up instantly. I mean, like, as soon as I hit the button, boom, started right up. And the car performed more than I was hoping for, believe it or not. I was like, wow, this car gets up and goes. It's much faster. I don't know, it was like a night and day switch from the previous fuel pump to the new one. So I'm very excited about this. So with that said, it's detail time. So I want to thank Kevin, I want to thank Dave, and I want to thank you guys for tuning into my channel. I do talk about cars, I do travel throughout New England, I talk about my past history, I talk about my health issues and all that stuff. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in. My next car video is going to be my 2014 Mercedes CLA 250 all-wheel drive sport package, and it's purple. All right. Anything else? Anything else? Wait. I did remember. Pros and cons. My overall impressions. Pros. We'll start off with the pros. Gorgeous car. Roomy. I'm 6'4", 240 pounds. Plenty of room. I love the dials. I love how the mirrors, the little knob, they're not just a little cheap little click. They have a nice feel to them. The sunroof, I like that dial. Has the heated seats, it has the suspension so it's nice and low, it has the upgraded 19-inch wheels, it has all the goodies that Kevin put on it, so these are all great pros. It's just a great car to drive. The steering, nice and light, but it handles so tight, you know what I mean? The clutch pedal is very light as well, I like that, I do like that. The cons. The clutch, not the clutch, but the shifter itself. The shifter feels a little rubbery. If it had a little bit more, you know, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, but it just feels a little rubbery. I do not like that. Con, fuel. I just said it was good fuel mileage, but it costs $5 a gallon because it needs 93 octane. I do have on the driver's rear quarter just a touch of rust going at the lip of the wheel well, and there's a dime size bubble of rust that I have not taken care of, because if I do, the smell of that chemicals, the paint and the clear coat, I'll get severe vertigo, aka dizziness. So the smell would bother me so much that I wouldn't be able to drive it. So that's the only reason why I haven't done that. What else? Because of the suspension, if you live in an area that has potholes, well, you're not going to enjoy it. But where I live in a little further north, or the back roads, no potholes, oh, it's so nice. It's just so smooth. I really enjoy it. I'm sure there's a few things that if I remember I will put right here, but other than that, I love the car. My overall impressions are it's nice and roomy, it's comfortable to drive, it looks so good, and with all the add-ons and the performance parts on it, it's just a pure pleasure to drive. I really do enjoy it. I want to thank you, Kevin, very much. Again, Kevin, anytime I reached out, he was there.
My name's Kevin.
To get back to me. As always, Dave, my main man, thank you very much, and until the next video, Baldadonis out.